As I was trying to notch it up in my head, how many times we've talked about this, you and I, and over how many years. I mean, it goes back probably a decade since it started, really, and we've discussed it for hours and hours over that time. Yeah. Nobody apparently, this is the Gordian knot of all contemporary problems, neither the Home Office, anybody else's Home Office, France, the Navy, that nobody can solve this. We can do lots of things. We would stop 700 people climbing over the gates at Heathrow if that happened, but we cannot, for some reason, stop people crossing the channel illegally in boats. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, the reason for that, Ian, is that we seem to have a government and a civil service, a whole sort of public administration that is totally incapable of doing thinking about things in a terrible phrase, I know, but in a joined-up manner, you know, cause and effect. And there are also... Yvette Cooper's absolutely right when she says this is highly complex. The problem is the government has said that it's going to do X, Y, and Z without figuring out that complexity, without understanding it, without mapping it out. And that's where successive governments have failed in this. They think they can do one thing. Now, you know, we've all heard this government say that they're going to smash the gangs. Well, they've been doing, I don't know how many trips. Yvette Cooper's probably done as many trips to Europe to try and talk to law enforcement people over there as I've talked about this whole problem with you. And the problem that they've got now is that the European Union, the European Commission, has established that it will not grant the UK, the authority to lead investigations that involve European law enforcement agencies. And that's one of the reasons Keir Starmer is out there and he's trying to sort of negotiate a new deal with the European Union. It's not going to work without significant sort of give on our part in other areas such as fisheries and so on. We could talk about that whole sort of negotiation ad infinitum.
So you think this is intrinsically linked?
Unquestionably. What the European Union wants from us, and they've been sort of relatively open about it, is us to provide the EU with intelligence information and judicial information to enable them to lead their own investigations within the European Union. They will not allow us to lead those investigations. So we've got a bit of a conundrum. The second thing is the European member states are already highly dissatisfied with the quality of judicial information we give them. So if they arrest somebody that they know is wanted by us, they're having a problem prosecuting that person successfully in their own countries because we're not providing them with the evidence that they need to sufficient quality and in a timely manner. And that goes back to another problem we've got. It's you know, all these things are connected, are the appalling state of our judiciary and our courts, and how, you know, they're slow for Brits in the UK. So, you know, the European Union is highly dissatisfied with the way that we're providing stuff. So they don't want to do a deal which means that they're going to give us more responsibility within their own territory. It's not going to happen. So the government, in other words, Yvette Cooper not being able to give a timeline, well, that's because she can't, because all of the things that the government wants to do, they have no plan for, and they haven't mapped out all of those interconnected elements that they've got to work on concurrently as one program, if you like. So, you know, this is going to continue to evade. A solution is going to continue to evade this government and any other government, any other political party, whether it's Conservatives, whether it's Labour, whether it's Reform, whoever it is. If they fail to map this out and really go into the deep detail of cause and effect, it can be done. Absolutely, it can be done. It's been done in other parts of the world. Yep. It's just we've got a government and a public administration that seems incapable of it.
Stay with us, Henry. Ivon Sampson is with us, the immigration lawyer. Ivon, I mean, where do you sit on this one? I mean, obviously you represent people in this world. Can it be done? Can we stop it? Henry says it can, but there are political reasonings behind not accelerating or not doing anything about it.
Well, Henry's right. One thing, there's going to be horse trading. Look, the people who can stop migrants from crossing the channel are the French. It's their border. If they wanted to, they could stop it. No, they don't, despite the fact that we gave them £500 million of taxpayers' money to do so. And they haven't been able to do that. I mean, you've got to give credit to Yvette Cooper because she's being honest about this. She said, well, We don't know how long it's going to take, and we're not sure how we're going to do it. The reality is if you look at Syria, what's happened in Syria, what's really motivated people to go back to their country is when the conflict ends. And if you look at the number of asylum applications or people crossing the channel, and it's a direct correlation with conflicts around the world. It's just a reality. Now, what's interesting is that Yvette Cooper, while she was a Shadow Home Secretary, she said she would tackle this problem by having safe legal routes. And I noticed that she's forgotten all of those promises. And to give you an example, the resettlement scheme for those in conflict zones in 2023, latest figures we had, we gave 525 grants of people who applied from outside the country. Now, the way we need to do it, we need to come out the Refugee Convention. It doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work for the UK. We need to have our own set of laws. And we need to look at the correlation between the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights. I think we need to accept a certain number of people coming to the country. We're a compassionate, caring country who's offered protection to hundreds of thousands of people over many years. In 1999, we had 100,000 Somalis come over. Those asylum applications were decided within a matter of a few months. Why can't we do it now, some 25, 30 years later, and we can't do it?
Isn't that bizarre? Henry, I'd imagine, similarly, you probably agree with much of what Ivon had just said there.
I do. And I think, there's one thing that I disagree with. Look, a proportion of these people have originated from sort of countries where there's conflict or drought and so on. But many others haven't. Many others haven't. They are clearly economic migrants. If there was nothing else to it, they've already been in the European Union. They're making a choice. Now, it can be argued that they are permitted to make a choice once, if they're fleeing conflict. But I know it's largely been dealt with. But the Albanians are still a very good example of the fact that many people try to make it to the United Kingdom who are not from such countries. They are from peaceful countries where there is not such an issue as there is, for example, or has been in Syria. So we've got to get that right, and we've got to acknowledge that there are people move for different reasons. And one of the reasons I've always advocated we should go after the organised criminals is that at many points of origin, whether it's in Albania, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Somalia or Sudan or wherever, much of this movement is actually encouraged by organised crime. If they can market, like a travel agency, if they can market the opportunities in Europe and the UK to sort of ignorant, naive people on the ground in these countries and get them moving, then they're making money out of that. So there is a need to address that element. But essentially, what I've said, I think, still stands, and I think I would agree with me. We've got to deal with legislation, as he points out, but we've also got to deal with the push factors, why people leave these areas, and it's not all the same reason. We need bespoke solutions for that. We've got to deal with why they want to come to the United Kingdom, and we've got to deal with the facilitation and encouragement of that movement between those 2 points, the point of origin and the point of destination. Yeah. If we don't do that, and we've got to pull all of the various assets of government together, this is not just a Home Office thing. Who runs our ports? Well, bizarrely, it's not a port authority, or it's not even the Department for Transport. It is, in most cases, the local authority. We've got 63 different local authorities who all do their own thing at a variety of ports. It's absolute chaos. There is no other country on this planet that has such a disjointed method of managing its borders. It's chaos, and it needs a sort of clean piece of paper. Indeed.
And Ivon, just finally on the point that Henry raised there about, who these people are that are coming across boats, as has been said already, if somebody's in desperate need, then, we've always had a good, proud history of being able to assist, but there is a very real suspicion that a lot of these people are clearly not. I mean, you can base that on, firstly, some of the countries that they've come from. We've had Vietnamese, we've had all sorts of people over the years. So there's that. And then there's also the very real fact that if you've travelled through 12 very safe countries because someone's, put a price on your head or you're about to die, then would you really go for the sort of a la carte option and start shopping around when you've just, literally escaped death? What is your reading of how many people on those boats are genuine refugees?
Well, the data, I can give you Migration Watch's data, a organisation that Henry knows well. Between 2018 and 2024, 93% of asylum decisions were made by the 31st of March 2024. Of those, 3/4 were deemed to be genuine asylum seekers. So we know that the vast majority, and this is Migration Watch's data, of the national statistics data that we have, most of them are genuine. But look, we can't take everyone. We cannot. There's 80 million, but we've got to take our fair share. With regard to the pull factor, the Director Inspectorate of Border Force, he published the data, did a survey on why people come. 3 reasons. 1, English, that's the common language. 2, they've got family here. That's another pull factor. And 3, the most important is they think we're a decent, law-abiding country which complies with the law. I'm afraid France, Italy, Spain, not so much Germany, but they do not properly apply the convention. And they refuse people indiscriminately and remove them across the border. We don't do that. We treat people fairly, compassionately, and in accordance with the law.
And some would say that is the wrong approach, based on what we've been seeing. Listen, gents, I know, Henry, did you want to come in very quickly on something that
Yeah, just want to say the fact that so many people are granted asylum doesn't mean to say that they are actually deserving of it. We know that the assessment of the claims is very thin. We know that sometimes it's accelerated. You know, the fact we've got a problem with our entire system, including that element.
All right, on that point, Henry, thank you. Henry Bolton, international border control expert. Ivon Sampson, immigration lawyer, with us on the programme.